Okay, so are you ready to jump into some 6th century politics?
Always up for a little time travel, especially when it involves bishops and power struggles.
Well, that's what we've got on the menu today. 2 letters from Bishop Mappinius of Reims.
Mappinius, huh? Now, he was a fascinating figure, not someone you'd want to cross, I imagine.
No, he definitely knew how to play the game, but what's so fascinating about these letters is we see him wrestling with some, well, some pretty sticky situations.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to name names.
Oh, absolutely not. The first letter we're looking at is addressed to Bishop Nicesius.
Nicesius at the Council of Toul.
Exactly. Now, for those who need a little context, this is around 549 AD.
Right, just a few generations after the fall of Rome. The Frankish kingdoms are trying to solidify their power, and the church? Well, the church is right in the thick of it.
Major players, for sure. So Mappinius writes to Nicesius, and it's clear from the get-go that he's not happy.
Not happy at all.
Yeah.
He starts by quoting Matthew chapter 12. A kingdom divided against itself cannot stand.
Right. But he doesn't stop there. He connects this idea of division to the church itself.
It's brilliant, really.
Yeah.
He's basically arguing that a church rife with infighting and disagreement is just as vulnerable as a kingdom divided.
And in this context, a unified church is critical. They have a lot of influence at this time.
Oh, absolutely. They're often the ones holding things together.
But here's the thing, right? Mappinius isn't just making some general observation about the state of the church. He's personally offended.
Deeply. And he lets Nicesius know it in no uncertain terms.
He does. And that's where it gets interesting. So it seems like Nicesius has been handling some issues within the church, disciplining some clergy, potentially.
We don't know the specifics, but it was definitely something serious enough to warrant action.
Right. And Mappinius's big beef is that Nicesius didn't loop him in, kept him completely in the dark.
Which, as you can imagine, didn't go over well. Mappinius lays into him for this secrecy.
You can almost feel the frustration radiating from the page, like, how dare you not consult me?
It makes you wonder, was this a genuine breach of trust? Or was Mappinius feeling a little, sidelined in a strategic power play?
Oh, I'm sure that thought crossed his mind. It makes you really think about their relationship, their dynamic. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Because Mappinius doesn't just frame this as a personal slight. He claims it's a breach of canon law.
He actually brings up canon law. What does he say?
He argues that by not being informed, he could have unknowingly associated with someone who'd been excommunicated or something similar.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a big deal.
Huge. He even name drops the specific law he thinks Nicesius might have broken.
Talk about adding insult to injury, right? Not only did you disrespect me, but you might have broken church law.
It's classic Mappinius. He's protecting himself, making it crystal clear that he's not complicit in whatever Nicesius has been doing.
He's covering his bases.
Exactly. And this is where the personal and the political become so intertwined. Because Mappinius ends this letter by emphasizing unity, talking about the importance of brotherly love.
But you're left wondering, right? Is this genuine concern for the well-being of the church?
Or a strategic move to protect his own position.
Or maybe it's a bit of both.
A little from column A, a little from column B. It's what makes these letters so fascinating. We're seeing the machinery of power at work.
The man behind the bishop's mitre. And that's exactly what makes studying these figures so fascinating. You get to see how they balanced ambition with the expectations of their role.
Right. It makes you wonder if anyone back then could really separate the personal from the political. And speaking of different approaches, letter number 2 takes us in a totally different direction.
Well, it's like night and day compared to that first letter to Nicesius.
Right, like whiplash.
Totally gone is all that frustration and barely concealed accusation. This time it's pure flattery, all directed at Bishop Vilicus of Metz.
Okay, so what makes Vilicus so special? Why is Mappinius suddenly like best friend material? Well, Mappinius lays it on pretty thick. He calls Vilicus the model bishop, someone worthy of imitating. He praises his leadership not just within his own diocese, but also how he guides and supports other bishops.
He even goes so far as to compare him to St. Peter.
Right. I mean, that's not a comparison you make lightly, especially in this period. This is the 6th century. Bishops have serious power. They're major players on the political scene.
So to be considered a good bishop, it wasn't just about knowing your scripture. You had to be a skilled politician, an administrator, maybe even a diplomat, all while upholding the church's teachings.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it seems that's precisely what Mappinius admired about Vilicus. He's holding him up as the gold standard of leadership, Someone who gets the complexities of the job and makes it work.
Someone who knows how to play the game.
And win. Which brings us to the pig request.
Oh, yeah. We can't forget about the pigs.
Right. So after all the high-minded compliments and theological musings, we get this incredibly down-to-earth request. Mappinius just casually throws in that he needs help buying pigs.
It's such a funny juxtaposition. You have all this serious talk about the church and power, and then bam, pigs. What do you think this says about Mappinius?
Well, I think it shows us that even these powerful figures, they were still very much grounded in the realities of daily life.
They had communities depending on them, and those communities relied on agriculture. So yeah, even bishops needed to worry about their food supply.
And who knows, maybe Mappinius just really liked a good ham.
Maybe he was a secret foodie.
Right. It just adds this really humanizing layer to these figures who often seem larger than life.
Speaking of humanizing, it makes you wonder how Villicus reacted to this request. Did he laugh? Get annoyed? Or just add, "Help Bishop buy pigs" to his to-do list?
I mean, can you imagine getting that request today from a bishop?
Hey, can you help me pick out some pigs?
Exactly. It's these little details that make history so interesting. They remind us that even in the midst of all the political maneuvering and religious debates, life still went on.
And sometimes life involved pigs.
It's exactly. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from power struggles and theological debates to strategic flattery and, yes, even pigs. What do you think the common thread is here? What makes these letters more than just ancient gossip?
It's like we're getting this really intimate look at how power worked back then. It wasn't just about armies and conquering territory.
Right.
It was about religious authority, personal connections, even, I don't know, doing favors for pigs.
Exactly. And Mappinius embodies that so well. He's juggling all these different roles. The pious bishop, the savvy politician, the pragmatist, worried about his next meal. It's fascinating.
And what makes these letters so valuable is that they're not just about Mappinius himself, right? They're about this whole world he was living in, this world where the lines between the sacred and the secular were, let's just say, a little blurry.
Incredibly blurry. These letters really challenge us to rethink those traditional narratives about the early Middle Ages.
Yeah.
You know, the stories about it just being this dark age of decline.
Yeah, totally.
Well, Mappinius shows us a much more complex picture. This was a period of immense change, and figures like him were right there in the thick of it, shaping the future.
They were making it up as they went along.
In a way, yes. And that's the beauty of history. It's ultimately about people, their stories, their struggles, their triumphs. And you know what? These letters, they don't give us all the answers, which is great.
Oh, absolutely. We're left with all these questions, like what happened at the Council of Toul? Did Mappinius ever get a response from Nicetius?
And did Villicus ever help him with those pigs?
Right. We may never know. But that's part of the fun, isn't it?
It definitely keeps things interesting. And it reminds us that history is an ongoing conversation. We're constantly uncovering new pieces of the puzzle, reinterpreting the past.
And that's what we try to do here on the show, to spark your curiosity about history and maybe inspire you to do a little digging of your own.
Because you never know what you might find. You might just stumble upon a bishop with a soft spot for livestock.
Or a letter that changes how you see the past. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into 6th century Gaul. It's been a wild ride.